Hello, and welcome to this presentation about why social media has to be part of your patient recruitment strategy. This is a recording that we made based on the original webinar that we did in October 2016. My name is Susanne Kruijf, and I prepared this presentation together with Simon Klaassen, managing partner at Link2Trials. So what you're looking at here is our clinical trial Accelerator. And we really like this metaphor when we speak about social media in clinical trials, because this is exactly what we aim to accomplish, accelerating the recruitment and thus your whole trial. So to start, we asked our attendees of the webinar who had already used social media for recruitment. And the answers we got was that 58% of the attendees had already used social media and 42% not yet. So social media has been on the rise for a little over a decade. I mean, social media as we know it really took off in the early years of 2000s. And I think it's safe to say that there's not been any other inventions that conquered the world as fast as social media has. Let's look at these numbers. The total world population is currently estimated at around 7.3 billion people, and about half of the entire world population is on internet. Almost one third of them are active social media users. So then we asked our attendees this quick question: are you on Facebook? And the answers that we got was that 83% were indeed on Facebook and 17% were not. So you may wonder why we were interested in that. And that is because Facebook is the biggest social media platform there is at the moment. There are some others, as you can see in this list, and you may recognize some of them, but most of what we do is on Facebook because of these numbers. So it's clear the potential reach through social media is huge. And let's look at what's going on in clinical trials. The majority of trials do not finish within timelines or budgets. And many sites under-enroll and too many never enroll. And this is the main reason for days lost in clinical trials, which is then site recruitment. So clearly, this is not going the way we would like it to go. We need people in clinical trials, and on social media there are loads of people. But how do you combine these two worlds successfully? Because in clinical trials we have regulations we need to adhere to, and communicating through social media has its own sets of rules, if you want. There's the technological part you need to understand, but for sure also the psychological part. And then there is the question, which indications are suitable for recruitment through social media? And this is a very good question. So we picked some indications and we asked our attendees what they thought. And the results were that 55% thought diabetes would be a good indication for online recruitment. Nobody picked colorectal cancer. Only 9% went for the lupus, and 36% chose answer D, all of the above. And the right answer is answer D, all of the above. And when I first met Simon, and he was starting with Link2Trials, and I worked as a project manager in clinical trials, so he told me about what he was doing with Link2Trials, and I could definitely see how this could work for the chronic illnesses like diabetes, hypertension. But there were a lot of other indications that I wasn't too sure of, like the colorectal cancer and the lupus. I wouldn't have known. And what I've learned over the years that there really are no boundaries, because basically everybody is online all the time. And not just the person that you need, but also their friends and their relatives. So you can really go online for almost anything. There's only one clear no-go, which is when you need an acute solution for an acute problem. So that makes sense. But for the rest, you can definitely look into it. Of course, there are some indications that are easier to get through to online, but it doesn't mean that you should ignore the social media option. It can be a very, very worthwhile part of your total recruitment strategy. So, of course, then your next question would be, can I quantify if it's a good solution for my indication? And the answer is yes. Um, you can do an online assessment of your trial population and look at the targetability for your trial. And to do this, you use the data that is available. Social media sites, they know their users. So this is general demographic data from Facebook. So they know where you live, they know how old you are, they even know how much money you make. And you can use this high-level data to geo-target your population. Now, I'm not sure that's a verb, but what you do is you check the actual use of social media in the surroundings of your sites. So you already get specific here for your trial. And then you dive in deeper. And this is what we call detailed targeting. So here you see an example where we have looked at 4 countries in Europe. So you can select a region. And we were looking into the lupus population. So at the bottom, we have specified specific interests related to lupus. And then at the right, you can see that the potential reach in these 4 countries is 270,000 people. And now this is on a country level, but you can also do this for a smaller area like a city or with a certain range, for example. And this is data that is available within Facebook. And when you go to the advertisement section, you get to the point when you can see this kind of options. And let's look at another example. And this is an example for the United States. And here we were looking into Hodgkin's lymphoma. And you can see that the potential reach is 4.8 million people. Now, you probably want to further define this again based on region, and that's possible. So this gives you a much more tangible idea on the potential reach that you will have for your clinical trial. So when you know that, how do you make them interested in what you have to say? These people are online. And this is a different ballgame compared to a poster in a physician's waiting room. And because online recruitment works with online advertisements, there is less information on an online advertisement. And you are fishing in a big pond. You are one of many messages that they scroll through when they are online. So your advertisement needs to get your patient curious or interested enough to actually click on it, and then you can lead them to a specific website related to your trial where they can read more on what you have to offer. So you need to know what makes people click. Do you remember this ice bucket thing from a couple of years ago? All of a sudden, everybody went on Facebook throwing buckets of ice over themselves. It was huge. But why? Behavior on social media has become a science in itself. It's pretty thoroughly researched. And there's one theory that we have found is most appropriate for online clinical trial advertisements, which is the theory from Professor Jonah Berger from Wharton School of Business. And he basically identified these 6 elements of why things catch online. Now, interestingly, 5 out of 6 bring something to the patient. It fits right in with patient centricity. And we don't have time to go into detail into these, but you may recognize them in the examples that we will show a little bit later on. First, before you post anything online, you need approval. The process with the ethical committees is exactly the same as for any advertisement. All the materials that you want to present to the public need to be reviewed and approved. We have seen some different interpretations of the guidelines, especially in the beginning when it was all very new. For example, ethical committees that only want to review the text material, others also want to see the pictures. But in the ethical committee approval process, it's very similar as what you're used to with other advertisements. When you want to take your social media recruitment strategy global, you do have to keep in mind that some countries do not give approval for any advertisement, so also not for social media. And in Russia and China, Facebook is not the biggest. They have their own social media platforms. One of the biggest fears of going online is that there will be online discussions that spin out of control. What we have seen is that it never starts as a discussion. We have never seen out of control. We've never seen these discussions at all because it starts as a question. People have questions. And if one person has a certain question, usually more people want to know the same thing. So when you answer this question appropriately and quickly, it becomes an asset rather than a liability. And that's our experience. Now let's look at some examples of online advertisements and then the results of it. So, first example. We've seen this one before earlier on in the presentation. It was made for a functional constipation study. So as you can see, it's just a picture, one sentence, that's it. This will have to do the trick. People will need to click on this and then you can take them further. So the flow of events, that's what you're looking at here from top to bottom. So in week 1, we placed the study information on the website and we started the advertisement campaign. And then in week 2 to 12, about 870 subjects matching the high-level criteria were recruited. They all went through an online pre-selection. And this is the beauty of online recruitment. You can lead people through an online pre-selection, filtering out the truly eligible subjects. And in this case, 294 subjects could be invited for a screening visit. And 1 week later, 134 subjects were randomized. So that's pretty cool. Another example. A study for women with reduced sexual desire. This was a single-site study in the Netherlands, and the number at the bottom of the advertisement shows how many people had received the advertisement at the time that this screenshot was taken, which was about almost 115,000 people. So let's look at the timeline again. Week 1, placing the information online. Week 2 to 8, recruiting 1,274 subjects. After the pre-screening questionnaire, 668 were called for an additional interview, and that left 124 subjects to be invited for screening visits. 4 weeks later, 74 subjects were randomized. Last example, very cute. This was for an allergy study, and I have a different sort of graph with this one to show you what happened, because the online recruitment started halfway. So we used the same methodology. We placed the ad online, we did the pre-screening, again a telephone questionnaire, and you can see that already about 15 subjects were recruited, and then it took about 2 weeks to reach the objective of 60 subjects. So with that, I wanted to conclude this presentation, and I hope that we have been able to show you that new ways can open new doors. If you would like to ask any questions, please feel free to contact Simon or myself, either by email or by telephone. And well, hopefully your trial will end up in our accelerator as well. Thank you and bye bye.